흐르는 세월과 함께 조선의 세대와 세대들이 가장 보람찬 삶을.
I'm in the middle of the most secretive country on earth, and this hotel room is the only place that I can film freely. Within 100 yards of this room there are families slowly starving, and I'm not allowed to report on it. Although the government here has requested international assistance, it's extremely difficult for aid workers to gain access here, and for journalists it's impossible. Without access and without images, a mere trickle of aid is coming in.
We want to see what we can bring. We also want to see what sort of a relationship we can have. But our primary objective is to help the people in need. So we don't.
This man holds the resources of one of the world's biggest aid agencies, but to date he's made nothing but a token contribution to North Korea. He's negotiating an agreement with the government, but he's suspicious about how aid is delivered here. He can't direct where it goes, nor who it goes to. He knows there's a need, but he's not allowed to see it.
Care can bring in small projects. If you want a bit of help here and a bit of help there, then you can have that. But that's not really you're not using the benefits that care can provide in a major way.
그래서 우리가 처음에 내가 그 케어 대표를 만났을 때는 매우 큰 기대를 가지고 대표를 맞이했어. 그래서 이번 근 6개월이라는 세월이 남아 흘렀는데 아직 이를 다할 국제 케어를 통한 협조가 이를 다할 그게 눈에 띄게 나타난 게 그거 아직 없어.
Since then 6 months.
Simon Williamson knows that in the past 6 months, people have been dying in the remote regions of North Korea. But his plan to launch a relief project there has been rejected by the government. No foreigners are allowed. Without access to the people in the most need, he's refusing to deliver aid to the places the government want him to, places that don't need emergency aid at all.
내가 말하고 싶은 건 우리가 처음에 기대했던 것보다는 활동이 매우 좀 미약하지 않나.
What I want to mention is that your activity is under our first initial expectation.
If you want to come in and help out, the North Koreans aren't letting you bring those resources in a way that you can be sure that the people who need it get it. So how do you address that? What do you say? The North Koreans are saying, well, look, we've got our system, we ensure that everybody gets what they need, and you just give us the money or the food and we'll take care of that. You know, this is our country. And it is their country. But that's not the way humanitarian aid works. If you walk down the street and you see a starving child, that's the child that you're going to target with your resources.
There's no starving children in the capital, nor in the fertile rice bowl areas that surround it. But it's to these regions that the government is trying to direct all aid. Williamson's message that no access to the remote areas means no aid at all has had an impact. Today he's been given a rare permit to travel north out of the capital, and his recommendations will be made at the end of this 7-day journey.
He's not sure about his goals.
I've been given permission to film his investigation. I can't film on the street or from the car, I can't do interviews, and we've been told not to approach civilians. We've been given a minder, and the man in the background has been assigned to watch over him, guarding the guard and taking down every word that he utters. It's a level of control which seems totally normal to everyone around us.
They've spent years and years and years developing this idea of socialism and independence. The last thing they want to do is expose to themselves, and especially to foreigners, that they've got problems. Yet they know they do, and they do want the help, and it's just a dilemma for them.
As we travel north through the central provinces, we stop at as many kindergartens as possible. Children are the first to show signs of famine, and in place of a proper survey, these visits enable Williamson to gain an impression of the region and devise a strategy for assistance. But discovering exactly what the needs are is easier said than done.
With that in mind, when he's preparing the list of nurseries and kindergartens, it would be also good if he could identify which nurseries and kindergartens need sanitation facilities.
After your project is being under operation, we are going to have some cleaning around this area and show you.
Well, if we're going to do the project, I really need to see the sanitation service.
I think later you can see it.
When? We've only got about 10 minutes.
After documents approved,
But I'm not going to be coming now.
work begins.
No, the documents come after I see them. I mean, really.
This argument about devising a sanitation program without seeing the toilets seems petty, but to us it becomes a symbol of the aid impasse in North Korea.
No, nobody will let us look at this.
Help is available, but the problem is too embarrassing to show.
But it's the last chance I have to do this project.
It shouldn't be last chance. You should come several times if the project begins here.
The project won't begin unless we have a chance to see some of the problem. You understand that, Moon. Come on, convince them.
Seeing toilets, I think you better keep on it.
Once you've done that, you're design your program.
We're in the county of Huchon, north of the capital, and heading up into the mountains. It's an area rumoured to be in trouble, but it seems that we're being shielded from it. Until we break the schedule and start visiting nurseries at random.
I work for Care International, it's a non-government aid agency. So we're looking at trying to assist improve the nutritional status of children in Huichon. I'm sure you'll be familiar with some of the work that they've
There's not a lot of singing in this group. Many of them no longer have the energy. Their stillness is chilling. If these children slide into category 3 of malnutrition, they'll lose all of their powers of movement, even the power to eat.
어린이들 속에서 고급성 설사병 서대장염 이런 거가 제기됩니다. 그래서
diseases such like diarrhea.
And these are the healthiest kids in this nursery. We're told that up to 20% of the class have stayed home today, probably too sick to attend.
You've got skin problems. These kids are stunted. There's a sort of a lethargy amongst some of those kids. It's not a situation that where they're dying instantly. It's deteriorating very steadily. So without some attention or without a nutritional support to these kids, you'll see them move into category 3 and into a critical state where they need to go to hospital.
As we discover over the next few days, the kids that make it to hospital are a lucky few. There's simply not enough beds or medicines to cope with the need.
And he usually has 5 or 6 times of diarrhea.
We've been told by the government that we can't film in hospitals. In a state which specialises in creating images of its own perfection, they're concerned that sick and hungry children reflect badly upon them. Local officials are far more obliging. They desperately need help and they give us access to get it.
그러니까 식량이 충분하지 못하니까 아이들 용량 관리를 그러니까 소화되기 쉬운 걸로 들어가지 못하고 그래서 굳은 식사로.
And what are they doing about that? What sort of medicines do you have, or what sort of
어떻게 치료하고 있는가, 뭐 약이 있는지.
The aid organisation, MSF, has been able to deliver medicines to this ward, but the hospital has no food at all. The mothers have to supply it, and they've no more food now than they did when their children began to starve.
What is her ration for herself? We know that there are definitely people dying and people who are in danger of dying. Hundreds, thousands, but we don't know. We're not able to assess that with any degree of accuracy, but we know it's happening. The proportion of it.
Why don't you know?
I think we're not able to go to the places that are randomly and do any objective assessment. You know, they control their own information so tightly within themselves. So to have somebody come in here and ask questions and want to take pictures and tell the world what's going on so that we can bring them assistance is completely alien to them. How do people, when people come from the outer areas, people in the more remote parts of Dongsin, how do they get access to...
We've arrived in the village of Dongsin, as far north as we're allowed to go.
What happens to them in the winter?
Aid groups are either discouraged or forbidden from working in remote areas like this. The government wants to direct all resources to wealthier regions of high production and presumably of high political value.
The North Koreans want to target the more resource-intense areas so that they can produce a higher yield, and then therefore their argument is distribute it throughout the country. We don't think their system is functioning that well. If you're not in the system, you don't get the food. And as one fellow said, you don't work, you don't eat. Well, that's not our philosophy. If you starve, you get assistance if we can provide it.
Where are we going now?
We're just going to visit one of the families where some of the children are in some of the more severe conditions.
집 방문하러 왔습니다. 욕실에 왔습니다.
It's the first day that we've been given permission to visit the families of our choice. Again, thanks to a local official, more concerned with getting help than the image of the state.
That means 1995.
Okay.
1995.
This woman lives with her mother, her daughter and her baby son. The men in the room have come with us. Her husband died did the husband die before the baby was born? Her baby is 15 months old. He looks no more than half that age, and it's unlikely he'll survive the coming winter. She understands, and your child looks like it might be marasmic. What's the marasmic condition of the child? Looks fairly serious. What could they can tell us about their food situation?
그러니까 신경이 좀 풀릴 땐 그런 데로 생활을 유지했단 말이다. 그런데 수해로 세대 좀 죽고 기게 되니까 좋아요를 뒤르고 이거 혼자 살자 하니까 신경 공급받는 건 아예 없고 이제 야 선줄에 맞으니까.
Her other child is 14 years old.
그게 그저 특별히 병은 없는데 그저 저희 미래도 이렇게 알으면 보름 비기지 못해서 아야 완전히 영양실적 걸려서 그저 한심하게 됐대. 이건 자꾸 흡수를 못하고 그게 너무 몸이 약하니까 그저.
As you can see, she's...
This family has been living on about 100 grams of food per day, maybe a cupful of rice each. We're told that everyone receives the same ration, but clearly those that are working have much more. This is no socialist famine. None of their neighbours are suffering like they are. It seems that only the non-productive are left to starve.
이 피해 받고 나서는 이런 모습이고 이렇게 뭐 또 환자 대단하니까니 뭐 어떻게 하디 못해서 오지 이런 그런 살아갑니다.
The World Food Programme claims that it's delivering food to this area through the government distribution system. But it has no staff here to ensure that families like this get what they need. The government can't keep these people alive, and neither CARE nor any other agency are allowed to deliver food to them directly.
How old is she?
They can't even beg. Their only option is to sit and wait for a starvation ration, which often doesn't come at all.
아니 이제 15살이라니까. 15살입니다.
이건 이삭이 아니야. 이거
There's just nothing there.
네.
See?
This is the harvest that was to save Dong Sin, but floods and now a drought have taken their toll.
If this is your best crop, it looks at what we've seen at the moment.
the
It's
others.
less than 50%.
Yeah.
So, the rest of the county must be... Really, the corn harvest has been totally devastated, really. Yeah.
From a distance, it looks as healthy as any other crop. But like everything else here, you need to peel back the covers to see it. A town that looks okay on the surface until you start knocking on the doors. A child that you think is just thin until you feel their arms through their clothes.
When did you receive your last ration?
마지막으로 받은 게 한 열흘 됐습니다. 그래서 지금 신장 이제
This man broke his back last year. He can no longer work, and now his daughter is starting to starve.
And the families that we've seen with malnourished children are the ones that have lost their homes or their relatives or their husbands died or their situation is in some way more vulnerable. They're the ones that are suffering most. And so that's why you're seeing pockets of it. You're not seeing starvation everywhere.
가고 또 초는
There'll be no surplus to keep people like this alive through the winter. And it's likely that the situation is even worse further up the mountains, where there's even less arable land.
They want to focus whatever resources they can get sort of in an arc around Pyongyang. It would appear as if they've decided to let the more remote areas go. They've got a problem, they think they can control it by losing that part of their country, or not losing it, but letting that part go and focusing on the area they've got control over. So that's why we suspect that things are much worse in the more remote areas. But they won't let us up there. They won't let us up there maybe because they don't want to see how bad it is, and if we see how bad it is, that's when we'll want to work, or because they just really want us to keep away from that and focus on the rice bowl areas.
하기에 경의하는 김정일 동지를 우리 당의 총비서로 높이 추대할 때 대한 중요한 문제를 고의 결정하는 평화남로당 대표의 소식이 접한 여기 김종태 전기기관차
In the face of natural disasters, the dear leader, Kim Jong-il, is committed to maintaining the world's last totally socialist system. But it's not just droughts and floods that have created the crisis here. North Korea has never had enough land to support an agrarian communist model, and since the collapse of its only patron, the Soviet Union, it's had no other economic inputs to make up the difference. It's a nation of edifice, spanned by huge highways but virtually no cars. Grand factories with nothing to make and nothing to sell. A capital city designed to look like a commercial hub, but with no commerce at all.
I'm confident that if we can sit down here and identify the need of food security for nurseries and kindergartens, that if we're working together on this, we can probably do 200 or 300 nurseries and kindergartens, maybe even more. But we're starting with a small number to build confidence for you. I mean, it's a learning, as you said, this is the first time that the DPRK has asked for international assistance, but it's also the first time that international assistance has come to the DPRK. So everybody is...
Williamson is having his final meeting with the Deputy Chairman of the Government's Relief Committee. He's restating his position that there'll be no unmonitored national donations, but he will provide assistance for the areas he's seen.
I've been to Dongsin and to Huichon, and it's clear that there is a great need, and CARE will respond to that need immediately.
He'll supply greenhouses and winter clothing directly to the kindergartens. If it's successful, he'll expand the program, but it's not how the government wants to receive aid, nor where it wants it to go.
It's been generally agreed that we focus on two provinces connected, and probably in 3 or 4 counties in those 2 provinces to begin with. And that's been Dongsin, Huichon
동신희천에는 기본 그게 농사를 기본하는 구역이 아니라 지역이 아니라는 거죠. 우리가 농사를 기본하는 이 서해 지역, 이 서해 지역이 기본 농업지대인데 여기다가 우리가 농사를 협조를 집중해주면 그 한 개 군에서 나오는 식량이 동신이요 희천에서 몇 개 군에서 식량 생산을 더 많은 양 생산한단 말이에요. 우리나라에서 보면 대체로 보면 그 저쪽의 북쪽 지역에서는 기본 농업을 물론 농사를 하지만 거기서 생산하는 생산물이 극히 제한되어 있습니다. 그렇기 때문에 우리가 이쪽 서해안 농업에서도 우리 서해안 지대에 집중해가지고 서해안 지대나 쌀을 다 북쪽에다 공급해 준단 말이에요.
That's why we focus on
In a more open society, the government's logic might be believable. It's a position which is costing them, and more importantly, people who are starving, a fortune in potential aid.
Maybe we can get much more than that.
Williamson gets his program for the kids of Huchon and Dong Sin, but for thousands of others starving, unknown and unseen, there's no one coming to help.
Children will die because of the severe winter, and we definitely don't want that to happen if we can avoid it.